we all love our phones, right? I mean,
Yeah.
who doesn't love that constant connection, the instant access to information, the ability to share our lives with everyone?
It's true. It's hard to imagine life without them at this point.
But, you know, have you ever stopped to think about the people who actually make that connection possible?
Mm. Not really.
The ones who are out there, like, risking their lives every single day so that we can stay online.
You've got a point. I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, today we're going deep, a deep dive into the world of tower climbers. We're going to explore the hidden dangers of this industry. You know, it's kind of overlooked.
It really is. It's fascinating how something so essential to our modern lives can operate so far outside of our awareness.
Exactly. And it's not something we think about. Like, we rely on these networks every single day, but most of us never really give a second thought to the people who are actually out there building and maintaining them.
You're right. Out of sight, out of mind, as they say.
Exactly. So to guide our deep dive today, we're looking at this article from Investor titled The Deadliest Job in America.
Oh, wow.
And let me tell you, it is not for the faint of heart. This article is intense.
Yeah, I can imagine. Really disturbing stuff.
It really is a sobering read.
Yeah.
What really struck me, reading through it, was the sheer scale of the danger involved in this job.
Right.
Did you know that the fatality rate for tower climbers is actually 10 times higher than that of the average construction worker?
10 times.
10 times.
Wow, that really puts things in perspective. It's not just a risky job, it's statistically one of the deadliest professions in the entire country.
It's crazy. And the numbers are, honestly, they're pretty staggering. Since 2003, nearly 100 climbers have died in the U.S. alone.
100.
Yeah, just think about that.
So that's basically what, an average of one death every month?
It's like a hidden cost of our, always being connected.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking, and it makes you realize that behind all those cold statistics, there are real people, real families, people who have lost loved ones. Yeah. And, the article really brings this home when they share the story of Jay Guilford, who tragically died just 1 year into the job.
Oh, wow.
It's awful.
Yeah, Guilford's story is just a stark reminder of the human cost behind this industry. It's easy to get caught up in the technology, the speed of progress, all that, and we forget about the individuals who are actually out there, like, putting their lives on the line to make it happen.
Yeah. And it's not just the heights that make this job so dangerous. I mean, we're talking extreme weather conditions, working with all this heavy equipment, hundreds of feet in the air.
Right.
And often, they're using equipment that can be, well, let's just say, unreliable.
That's terrifying.
The article even mentions that a dropped wrench from that height could be fatal.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The margin for error is incredibly small.
Yeah.
Every move has to be calculated, every piece of equipment meticulously checked.
Right.
And even then, as we know, accidents still happen.
All the time. The article talks about veteran climber Ray Hull, who was actually injured in a 240-foot fall because a piece of the tower he was working on just broke loose.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Was he okay?
Well, thankfully, he was wearing his safety harness, and that's what saved his life.
Oh, wow.
But he was left permanently disabled.
Gosh, that's awful.
It's really sad.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
And Hull's story, it kind of highlights another layer of complexity in this industry,
Okay.
which is the intricate web of subcontracting.
Interesting.
You've got these massive corporations like AT&T, Verizon.
Right.
They need to expand their networks, and they need to do it fast. So they hire subcontractors, and then those subcontractors hire smaller companies. And it just kind of goes on and on. So it's like a chain reaction.
It is. It's like a chain reaction. The responsibility, the risk gets passed down the line.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates this situation where it can be really difficult to pinpoint who is ultimately accountable when something goes wrong.
Right. And as we've seen with the rise of smartphones and 3G technology, the pressure to expand these networks has just intensified in recent years.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's insane. I mean, think about it. The launch of the iPhone, everybody wanted one. And the demand for, faster data speeds, it created a total gold rush in the industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Suddenly, everyone needed to be connected.
Right.
And all these companies were scrambling to build out their infrastructure as fast as they could.
So you're saying that our desire, as consumers for constant connectivity, it actually contributed to these, unsafe practices?
I think it's definitely a factor. The article points out that, this whole industry boom, it was fueled by this demand for smartphones and 3G, and it really coincided with a sharp increase in climber deaths and accidents.
It's almost like we made this Faustian bargain, right? We get
Yeah.
all these incredible technological advancements,
Mhm.
but at what cost?
Exactly.
And one of the things that I found the most disturbing in this article was this whole idea of free climbing.
Yeah.
These climbers would, like, literally scale these towers,
I know.
hundreds of feet in the air, no safety harnesses, no ropes, nothing.
It's crazy.
Hold on. No safety equipment at all. Why would anyone do that?
It's insane, right? But it all comes back to those deadlines. Free climbing was just faster. And in this industry, like, time is money.
Yeah.
The article quotes a former climber, Wally Reardon.
Okay.
He said that, and I quote, "The pressure to meet deadlines was so intense that even the safest climbers eventually gave in."
But isn't free climbing, like, incredibly dangerous?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there have to be regulations against that, right?
You would think so, but the article highlights how OSHA, the agency that's responsible for workplace safety,
Mm-hmm.
they face a really tough battle when it comes to enforcing these regulations in this industry.
Why is that?
Well, it goes back to, like, what we talked about earlier.
Just subcontracting.
Subcontracting. It makes it really hard to hold anyone truly accountable.
Yeah.
So when an accident happens, the large carriers, they kind of deflect responsibility onto the subcontractors, right?
Yeah.
Who then point the finger at the smaller companies that they hired.
It's a mess.
It is. It becomes this endless cycle of blame shifting.
So no one's really responsible in the end.
Pretty much. There's a case, it's in the article, about Bluegrass Cellular.
Okay.
It illustrates this point really well. There was a climber working on one of their sites, and he fell to his death.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And even though there was evidence showing that Bluegrass Cellular would regularly visit the job site, they were ultimately able to avoid any liability.
Seriously?
Yeah. OSHA citations against them were actually dropped, and the case was closed.
So frustrating. It just seems like the system is designed to protect those at the top, while the workers on the ground are left to, like, take all the risk.
It really does. It raises serious questions about, who's responsible for the safety of these workers.
Yeah. And, I don't ever remember seeing any warnings or disclaimers about the risks that are involved in, making cell phones or maintaining cell phone towers. It's like this whole industry just operates in the shadows.
Yeah. And that's a big part of the problem. These hidden costs, the human costs, the environmental costs, they're rarely acknowledged, or even discussed. We, the consumers, are basically kept in the dark about the true price of our own convenience.
So what can we do? Are we just supposed to accept this as like the cost of progress?
No, I don't think so. I think the first step is awareness.
Okay.
We need to understand how complex these systems are, how our choices have a real impact on other people.
But awareness alone doesn't feel like enough, does it? I mean, what actions can we take to actually make a difference?
Well, one thing we can do is support organizations that are already working to improve the situation.
Okay.
Like the National Association of Tower Erectors.
So,
They go by NATE.
okay.
They're dedicated to improving safety standards within the industry.
That's good. So at least there are, groups out there actively working to make things safer.
Yeah.
But it still feels like a huge problem. What can one person do to make a difference in such a big industry?
I know it's easy to feel powerless, like when you're dealing with such big systemic issues, but, I really believe that every action we take, even if it seems small, can help create change. You were saying how overwhelming this all feels, but think about it this way. We're all a part of this, interconnected web.
Yeah.
And our choices, they have an impact. They have ripple effects.
I see what you mean. Like if enough of us demand safer practices from the companies we support,
Yeah.
if enough people start doing that, then that creates change. It shifts the market.
Right, exactly. Because that sends a message that says we're not willing to accept, these hidden costs as the rise of progress. Like, we can choose to support companies that prioritize the safety of their workers.
Right.
And we can advocate for policies that hold corporations accountable, put pressure on them.
Yeah.
It's about, making sure that our values align with our actions, our everyday actions.
I think this whole conversation, it also points to this bigger issue
What's that?
that we just take for granted, the invisible labor that makes our lives, the way they are, our modern lives possible. It's not just the tower climbers. It's delivery drivers, factory workers,
Right.
miners. I mean, the list goes on and on.
It does. You're absolutely right. We want that convenience, We want next day delivery. We want the latest smartphone.
Right.
But we don't stop to think about the people behind it all, the human cost.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening. It's made me realize that, staying connected, it has a whole new meaning for me now.
How so?
Well, it's not just about the digital connections anymore. It's about our connection with each other as human
Oh.
beings.
Our interconnected.
Yeah, exactly. And seeing how, our choices as consumers, as citizens,
Yeah.
have real consequences for other people.
And taking responsibility for that.
Yeah.
We all have a responsibility to be informed, to ask questions, and to advocate for a more just system for everyone, even those working behind the scenes, the ones we don't always see.
So what's the takeaway here? What do we want our listeners to, do after listening to this?
I hope they'll look beyond the surface, Consider the human stories that are behind these technologies they use.
Mm.
Ask themselves, what can I do to make a difference?
Yeah. Because it starts with simple things, right?
Yeah.
Like learning about the companies we support,
Yeah.
choosing more ethical options, sustainable options whenever we can,
Right.
and just speaking up about these issues.
Exactly. We can support organizations like NATE and the Communications Workers of America. They're fighting for the rights of these workers. We can reach out to our elected officials, push for stricter safety regulations, demand better enforcement.
We can share this information with our friends and family. Start conversations about these issues.
Yeah.
Because the more we talk about it, the more these conversations become normal,
Right.
the more likely it is that real change is going to happen.
Well said. I think this deep dive has been, well, it's been sobering,
Definitely.
but ultimately it's hopeful. It reminds us that we have the power to create a better world,
Right.
a world where progress doesn't have to come at the expense of human lives.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah.
We hope it's given you some things to think about.
Yeah.
And the next time you reach for your phone, remember the people who make it all possible, the ones who are working behind the scenes. Let's all do what we can to make sure they're safe.
Absolutely.